Yes, welcome back. We got something, I think, good on the bench today. Let's take a look at the work order and see what it says. So, flip over to the camera, no power, only RGB on the motherboard. So, let's go ahead and take a look at that. And we'll put on the screen what we're actually working on. So, give me a moment to do that. And there we are. So, let's recreate the problem. We'll pull a power cable. Okay, we have a couple switches back here. I just want to document this real quick just to show you. So we have an on-off and then an eco mode switch on and off. I'm going to turn both off. This is how this case come in. A little bit of backstory on this particular build that we're looking at on the bench for right now. This was a first-time builder, and they had tried diagnosing it themselves. So it is what it is. It's their first computer build. It worked until it didn't work, and now it's here. And here we are with it. So let's go ahead and flip back up to the camera. And no power, as you can see in the corner. We'll go ahead. Let's try and move this up a little. I don't always have the best angles, but you can kind of see me moving a power cord into place. And we're going to turn it on. Okay, so we do see, let me turn this light out. We do see some RGB on the motherboard. A good sign, but not a good sign. Let's just check a couple basic things to make sure that everything is connected. So we have our EPS connector, or 12-volt rail. It looks like the double one is plugged in, not the single. We got our 24 pin or 20 plus 4 pin plugged in. We do have, if I don't smash the camera with my head, we do have down here the graphics card connector kind of wedged into place. Yeah. I don't know why that's possibly pulled so tight. Who knows? Regardless, let's try and power it on. Let's get moving with the system as soon as I can find the power button. And no power, but we have power on the motherboard. And you know, come on, you know the rule. It's never the CPU until it is. But let's go ahead and diagnose this thing. So our eco mode button is on. We'll try and hit our power button. Eco mode, no power, just power on the motherboard. No power there. And off. We'll trigger it back on. And nothing. Okay, let's move on to the power supply. Here we go. we're about to get deep. All right, we need this disconnected. I want to try and do this as simple as possible without flip-flopping the whole computer every which way. So we'll take and unplug our 24 pin. That had a crazy bend in it. Would you believe it was right behind me? Of course you wouldn't. All right, so just a simple test. We're going to plug in some extension cables. That way we don't have to rip cables out the back of this machine. Flip-flop it every which way just to do some testing. All right, plugged in. Let's grab our super generic power supply tester that everybody has seen. I have a new one on the way that will actually do a little more than one of these ultra generic ones. And we'll flip over to this view to run the tester. So go ahead and plug that in. Let's plug in our 12-volt rail. Okay, so according to this, 3.3 and 5 volt is missing. However, let's try and fix that very quickly. Because we don't have our SATA connector in, but we do have the power that should power the motherboard. So that tells us that the power supply is good. And the peripheral cable coming out, where does it stem from? Actually take a look at this thing. Okay, I found the... Wow, why would those be pinched in there that tight? We're gonna fix that. So, you can't see it, obviously. Let's flip over to that one. So, the PCI Express 8-pin or 6+2 is pinched in between the bottom of the motherboard tray here and the power supply itself. So we're dealing with an EVGA Supernova 7. You can see the EVGA, then the Supernova in red, 750GA. It is 80 plus gold. And then we also happen to have an EVGA Supernova 750 GT. The cables for these two power supplies are cross-compatible with each other. So, that being said, I'm going to plug in to our peripheral spot, and we'll feed this cable out the front to run to the power supply so we can get our, I think, 5 and 3 volt will come off of this. I could be mistaken, and I have to remember to pull this back out. And we're going to go right into the peripheral spot. Okay, let's go ahead and plug in our SATA cable. See what the verdict is. Okay, so right there, we have lights across the board. We are missing that one. That would be the -3 volt. That should not affect literally anything, as I will show you a known working power supply right now. Give me one moment. Okay, so known good power supply, all right, and same results. Fairly certain that bulb is blown out. That's why I have a new power supply on the way. I don't like guessing. Now, it also could be because we don't have this plugged in, but I'm not sure what voltages went to old floppy drives, if they took that 3 volt line or not. Regardless, power supply seems to be doing what it's doing, so we'll move on from there. CPUs, which are pinless and the pins are in the socket. You don't have to worry about messing up these sockets, but you do have many pins on your processor, so you don't want to bend any of those. I'm going to take this and give it a nice little home to set in for the time being. I think we'll pull a known working CPU. Let's see what this is. So this is a Ryzen 5 5600G. We happen to have one of those. So we have this one here. We'll set it right there. And grab one from just over here on the counter. I have my own working, known good 5600G. We'll take and pull this out. While I have it out, I'm going to go ahead and clean the edges of it off. All right, so when you want to line these up, an important thing to take note of is the triangle. Anybody that's built a system, you know this, but we're going to state this for the people that haven't, in case there is a first-time builder watching. You have a gold triangle, and you're going to find a triangle on the socket, and I don't know if you can see that. Let's grab a pointer to point. So looking at this socket, we can see there is a triangle shape over here, just out of view, but we want the one that actually has the triangle notched out in the corner. That will be the corner where we put the gold triangle for this processor. So we're going to make sure our retention arm is up. We'll get this out of our way. We're going to bring this in and attempt to socket this CPU. We're going to go ahead. It is in, it is down. We'll close our retention arm. Very quickly, we're not going to waste thermal paste and mount that back down, but we are going to see if the system powers on. So we have power on the motherboard. Let's go ahead and hit the button. All right, so going with the system here, you can see our power. We have hit the power button, no power. We'll flip the eco mode switch too as well and just try. Also, right now to eliminate, hey, it could be a bad power button, we'll go ahead and grab my power button from, let's see if it powers on. And no power. We do have a light up here on our 12-volt rail. One thing I want to do, we're going to power down. We'll go from this one. You know what? It's simple enough just to plug these both back in. Let's do that just to be safe. You shouldn't need to do this. All right, both plugged in. No adapter. This is fine to lengthen that. Let's try our power button again one more time. We'll plug power in. Turn it on. And nothing. Okay. So we have our known good CPU in the socket here. Power down. Hit the button. Bleed power off the system. And we're going to completely move this off the bench, which is sad. I didn't want it to be the motherboard, but if we're going to do cable managing, we can definitely do it by pulling this motherboard out to this customer. We'll completely move this out of the way, and we're going to pull in another system to test the customers. We're going to test the customer's RAM and CPU. We know the power supply is good as far as I can tell, so lay that in there. Fairly certain it's the motherboard and not the CPU. It's never the CPU until it is. This time it wasn't. Known good working AMD system here. We'll go ahead and throw the customer's CPU in and the customer's RAM. Let's do that now. Same thing, just like the other board. We're going to find our gold triangle on the corner of the processor. See it there? And then we have a triangle on the same corner of the socket. Line that up. Make sure it's in. Pull down our retention arm. Let's grab some RAM. We'll actually go confidence on this one and put both sticks in. So customer CPU, we want to make sure it's working and that the RAM is working. And the motherboard was the fault. If we have to, we'll tear the system down. But not until I communicate with them, which I'm going to pause the video and do, and see if they just want a board put in or an exact board. Let's go ahead and set this in place. Now, we do have onboard graphics on this processor, so we don't have to slot a GPU in, although the system was set up with a GPU, so we'll go ahead and throw that in real quick. Let me need to figure out where I need to break out. believe it is this one. Don't scratch the mother. Is it that one? Yes. Okay. I'm gonna throw, what's this, 2070 Super in. Not part of the customer system. But this board, the hard drive, everything, BIOS was set up with this graphics card. Same processor. So let's see if we can get it to power on with the customer's processor and RAM. That will verify that that stuff's good. So we have power going to the system. We're going to go ahead and hit our power button. Or are we? Ah. Even with these unplugged, that still doesn't tell us why the system isn't turning on. Is it the CPU and the motherboard? But did both take a hit? Are both bad? Alright, we have power. We definitely have power. There's power. We're getting no power. Let's figure this out. The board definitely has power. We know this motherboard has power. So these are the screws. Let me show you this. These are the screws that are holding the motherboard in. You see that unthreaded part of the shank? That shouldn't be there. That goes through a rubber grommet into the bottom of a hard drive when you mount it in a cage. I want to hope that this board survived. I do. I really do, but I don't think. So I'm noticing it now. Let me try and show you on this camera if we can get it to focus in the right spot. Do you see this standoff here? And how? I know you can see it. I know you can see it right here. This one. You see the gap in the motherboard tray? And then if you kind of follow that back, that gap gets closer. Because there's an actual standoff that the motherboard locks into there. There's no other standoffs put in. So this board, essentially, this motherboard is bent down from every edge with those screws around that middle standoff. So let's see what we can do here. Yeah, this is going to be a thing. If we have to mess with standoffs, we got to mess with it all. There should be nothing catching. What is catching this board? Just my own sheer ignorance. The clip. Not a single standoff other than the one in the middle that when you put a board in locks it in. This board, well, it's not bowed anymore. It straightened out as the screws came out. So yeah, Let's proceed to a bench test, shall we? And plug into our power button connector. Power to our power supply. Power switch, reset switch. Just for any doubters, we'll flip the switch around. Power supply is on, as you can tell. You can't tell. Now you can tell. Nothing. Let's move the RAM, see if that makes a difference. I honestly don't think. Wow, what? We moved the RAM. Let's try and power this thing on. We need a fan or some type of sign of life. Motherboard's on. Nope, not going to work with RAM in different slots. I have seen that happen. That's not a thing here. All right. We'll try and resolve this in another video, but for now, I'm going to leave this mess here. Much, much, much love, people, for coming over, clicking the links, hanging out, checking out the hot messes that I bring to this bench. And this one, I think, fits it to a T. We'll work in the shop T-posing and just smashing into everything for this one. Holy crap. I'm going to take a look at this board under the microscope and try and see if we can find a short. If we can, you'll see it in a video. You really will. If you're new here, my name's Nick, and thank you for helping me diagnose what the problem with our computer system was today, the white build. We'll update it. There will be a second part to this. I want to look at the board, but as well, I also want to got to see what the customer wants to do. Got to get their computer back to them. So we'll see you soon, everybody. Thank you so much.